Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar by the Anglo. We're really excited to have everyone with us, and I'm seeing some familiar faces, well, familiar names, but I'm glad to have everyone with us today. As you know, today we're going to be talking about the IELTS Writing Task 1, specifically today, and we're really excited to have with us a very a exciting guest, Anna Karen Castro. She has been a teacher for 6 years and has taught a variety of ages and courses such as primary, preparation, business, and general English. Moreover, she has a master's in education and a Delta 2, which have been very helpful in her current practice as a product developer, designing the different courses taught at the Anglo. Here she is. We're really excited. Anna Karen, with no further ado, take it away.
Thank you, Emily. So thank you everyone for being here. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we're good.
All right, perfect. Okay, so as Emily said, today we're going to talk about IELTS, the first writing task. So as you know, IELTS is an international exam that can help you open many doors. You can use this to go to an exchange program. You can study a master's in another country. You can even migrate to another country if you have IELTS. So before we get to the meaty part of IELTS, I'm going to share with you in the chat a link to a form to test your knowledge about IELTS. How much do you actually know about it? Try to answer as many questions as you can. I'm going to give you like a minute, and then we're going to be looking at some of the answers throughout the webinar.
I think you made a really good point, Karen, when you were talking about how people can take the IELTS, of course, to get into a master's, but also to migrate or to sometimes even here in Mexico, they ask you for it. There are lots of reasons why people take the IELTS.
Yes, I think that taking IELTS is a really great option. It provides you with a variety of things that you can do to different countries, or maybe not even moving to a different country or traveling to a different country. But here in Mexico, it's becoming more common to accept IELTS in many different companies, right? And I actually can see that a lot of people are already replying, and I think we have a lot of IELTS experts over here. So, well, I'm hoping that that's still everything that we see in the webinar today will be very useful for
I'm
them.
sure, I'm sure.
Okay, so we have a lot of responses and we can start checking some of your answers. So remember that the IELTS has actually there are two types of IELTS. We have the academic IELTS and we have the general training IELTS. So for this webinar, this first writing task, we will be talking about the writing task that appears in the academic IELTS because with the general training one, the task is a little different. So the main characteristics of the first IELTS writing task is that it has a duration of 20 minutes. You should be writing a minimum of 150 words. And the aim of this task is to describe and summarize visual information. Some of you already mentioned a couple of things. You can use graph, you can use charts, you can use tables, even diagrams for this. And because it's an academic type of writing, you will be using a neutral to semi-formal style. What does that actually mean? That you're not talking with your friends, so you don't want to be using a lot of slang or contractions, but you don't want to be as formal as like talking to the queen. So you shouldn't be using contractions, but your style should be kind of neutral, and you should be, because of the type of task you're going to be describing, you will be using very specific type of language. And other considerations is that it has half the value of the second task. You actually already chose this. IELTS has two tasks, and the second one has more value than the first one. So let's say that if the second one had an 80% points, you would be the first task would only be 40%. So we should be spending more time on the second one than on this first one. You are not penalized for writing more than 150 words. You should use an impersonal style because you're describing. So an impersonal style is using passive voice, avoiding the we, the us, we can see this, I think this. Just try to use passive voice. It can be seen, blah blah blah. And we can have graphs, diagram, maps, tables, or processes for the tasks. There's a common misconception that it's always graphs, but you can get any of these options for the task. And before we get on to a little more specificity of the task, I want you to be able to know what it looks like. What is a graph? What could be a diagram? What could be a map? So I'm going to show you three images here, and you have to match these three images, 1, 2, and 3, with the options that appear below. Please write your answers in the chat.
Okay, Santiago's got some answers for us. It seems like Elizabeth agrees. We've got, oof, they're coming in. They're coming in. Right.
Perfect. All right. So pretty easy, right? I think a piece of cake. All right, so let's check at the answers. So the first one we have is a pie chart. I think it's quite self-explanatory. We will always find like a very visual kind of information, percentages. In this case, we don't have a lot of colors, but usually you will have probably colors. You will have the title. A diagram can be usually it's to describe a process. So this would be a diagram, and the third option would be a map. So I know it's a little weird, like what will I say about the map? But usually you will have a very specific task of what you need to be uh, talking about regarding the map. And there are three other options, and we're going to do the same thing. So you have to match the images, these three images, with the correct option below. Please write your answers in the chat. No, I can see that Mariana and Santiago are like on fire today.
I think everybody's ready. They're answering fast now. They got it. They got it.
Okay, so the first one we have is the graph, the second one a table, and we also have a bar chart. So just like the difference between a graph and a bar chart is usually here in the bar chart, you will have these little bars, of course, and in the graph, you'll probably have like these linear kinds of things. And the table can also be talking about a lot of different things. So basically, you will be able to have these 6 types of visual information: the bar chart, the table, the graph, the pie chart, a diagram, or a map. And what are some important points we were discussing, Emily, while we were planning for the webinar? What are some of the common mistakes and what are some things that we would recommend our students to do? So in the writing task, the things you should do is analyze the graphs before writing. It's very important that you take 1 or 2 minutes before you start scribbling away to notice which are the important elements and characteristics that you want to address in the task. Because if you want to spend too much time writing absolutely everything, time will consume you and you won't be able to complete the task on time. Another important thing is after you have analyzed the graph, try to write some language or vocabulary that might help you. It could be verbs, adverbs, or other specific vocabulary that you are likely to learn when you're taking the preparation course, because most of it is likely to be repetitive. Another important point is to describe and summarize the information. This is something that I always tell my students. It's very important that you only describe and you try to sum up the most important points and not get sidetracked or start talking about something else that's not specifically in the or explicitly mentioned in the graph. Another thing is write your information in paragraphs. As we mentioned before, it's only 150 words. So sometimes we have this tendency to try to write only everything in one paragraph in one chunk, but you should separate your information in different paragraphs. And we will be talking about the layout and how to structure the different paragraphs later on. And another important point is that yes, you have 20 minutes to do your task, but you should always consider a little bit less time because you need 3 to 5 minutes to be able to check that all of your ideas are well organized, that they are clear, that you don't have any spelling mistakes, any grammar mistakes, so that you can get the best possible grade. And the most important thing to consider as well, the don'ts. So do not take more than 20 minutes in the task. As I mentioned before, the first task has a lot less weight than the second one. So you want to focus your time, your all the 40 minutes that you will have for the second writing task. And if you don't finish in the 20 minutes, it's better to just leave it and move on. Even though you're not penalized for writing more than 150 words, you are penalized if you write less than 150 words. So be very careful with this. Do not try to include all the information. As I said, you will start losing time and spending time on things that are not important. So just when you're doing your analysis, make sure that you know which information you want to focus on. Do not get sidetracked on another topic. The graphs or the diagrams or maps are really straightforward. So do not start trying to talk a related topic that's not in the graph, which is also really related to the next point. You are only describing and summarizing information. Do not give your opinion. Don't say, oh, I think this would work in Mexico. I think that people like pastries more than they like certain kinds of food. Don't do that. And very related as well, do not speculate about the reasons behind the data. Do not say, I think more people want to take IELTS because it's becoming a more demanded type of examination. That is not what they're asking you to do. Just describe and summarize the information. And we're going to do a little exercise of analyzing graphs. So here is a graph and it's talking about accident reductions per kilometer in Bridgewater following the introduction of extra lanes on busy motorways. So I'm going to show you 4 sentences, and you have to decide which sentence is the correct one that is applicable to the graph. Write the number in the chat, please. Which one do you guys think is the correct one? All right, I see a lot of you agree that it's number 3. Okay, some of you say 2, some of you say 1, 3 again. Okay, so the actual correct answer is number 3. Sorry, everyone else who didn't write number 3. So the first one where we have there were mixed results following the introduction of the new traffic system in Bridgewater. We really don't have mixed results because if we look at the before and we look at the after, we can say that the after does have a significant reduction. So this one, the first one would not be applicable. In number 2, On some roads, the extra lanes were more popular than others. Remember what I mentioned about the don'ts. This is giving your opinion or making inferences about information that we do not have here. And number three, which is the correct one, in every case, adding an extra lane on main roads had a positive effect on traffic accidents. We can say that it has a positive effect on traffic accidents because it was reduced significantly. And number four, all cities should incorporate their system on their main roads. You're giving a suggestion, you're giving an opinion. Again, this is not something that we can follow in the graph. So always try to do this analysis of the graph or the visual aid that you're given before you actually start writing so we don't make any mistakes like the other three sentences that we have here. And what is the structure for the first writing task? So as I mentioned, we need to have different kinds of paragraphs, right? And there's a specific structure or what we expect you or what is expected of you to write in each one. So I'm going to show you a paragraph for you to read, and you have to choose which option applies for this one. What can we find in this paragraph? Is it giving us important details? Is it giving us an overview of the main ideas? Is it introducing the topic? So just write the correct letter in the chat, please.
Got some answers here. B, C. Nobody said A yet. We all seem to agree it's got to be either B or
B or
C.
C. Right. Okay, so time for the big reveal. The correct answer is C. We're giving an introduction of the topic. So usually what we talk when we talk about this description and an introduction of the topic, it's not the common introduction where we start giving like in an essay. The introduction of the topic usually contains the title of the graph, what we have maybe in axis X and axis Y, what we're expecting to have in this graph. So see, the graph shows an average sales of 8 items, and it includes all the items that are going to be in the graph. So that should be in your introduction. So for the second paragraph, again, choose the correct option. Is it giving us important details, an overview of the main ideas? Is it an introduction of the topic? What do you guys think?
Everyone seems to agree this time. They say B. Oh, we got an A. We got an A. Couple A's here. But overall
Okay,
B.
the correct answer is very good. B. It gives you an overview of the main ideas in the graph. So we're going from very general to specific each time. So again, we can see that we have like some of these words that are indicators of what's coming. So we have overall, on the whole. So this is already giving us the main points of the graph. What are we expected? Like Bernie's Buns is generally the busiest bakery, outselling Lovely Lowe's in 6 out of 8 items. So try to, in the second paragraph, give the reader already a sense of what can be expected and overall what is the general overview of the graph. Imagine that it's like a person who can't see and you need to describe what would you generally say about the graph. That's what we should concentrate on. Paragraph 2. Let's see for paragraph 3. Again, read it quickly and choose the correct option. Type it in the chat, please. Okay. I'm not sure if you guys are really answering because you know it or just out of a ruling out process. Okay, yes. So the correct answer is A. So as you can see here, we already have very specific numbers and digits telling us and using some nice adverbs like roughly, around, with just 25 to 18 sold in turn. So that is giving us specific details about the graph. And finally, in the last paragraph, what do you guys think? Which is the correct option for the last paragraph? Yeah, I think everyone's on fire, Emily.
They're super fast. They're really catching on. That's great.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Perfect. Yeah, so I think you guys are very on to me. The correct answer is letter A. So if we look at the structure again, what did we say the first paragraph was about? Can you guys write your answer in the chat? Exactly. So we have the introduction. What did we say was the second paragraph? The overview, right? The overview of the main ideas in the graph. So we have like overall, on the whole, what we can see here. And then for paragraph number 3, we have the most important details. And the same thing is applicable for paragraph number 4. So once again, we go from the very general, just saying what we can find in the graph. Then in the second paragraph, we talk about a little bit more details of who's winning more, making that comparison. And then in paragraph 3 and 4, you should be focusing on talking about the specific details, adding all the numbers, the digits, the comparatives, all of that we should have in the third and the fourth paragraph. And now we're going to look at some samples. And I want you guys to tell me which do you think is the good sample and which you think is the bad sample. So I'm going to give you a minute to read. Let's see what happens, and just write if this sample is the good one or if the sample is the bad one. Gerardo, you're asking if it's like structure or content. Well, both, I think. Exactly. Okay, so write some answers in the chat or some ideas. Why do you guys think this is the bad sample? In like one brief sentence. Do you think the structure is not that good? Are there Are they addressing the task? Okay, yeah, very good, Kari. It mentions an opinion. Yeah, we have also like probably have had an impact on culture and habits. So, yeah, exactly. We have some speculations. How many paragraphs did we say that we needed to usually have? Exactly. We want to usually have four, the introduction, then we have a general overview, and then we give like specific points. So we're missing paragraph 2, right? Yeah, perfect. Very good. And then for sample number 2, what do you guys think? Is it a good sample or a bad sample? Yeah, Gerardo, exactly. We usually have 4, but depending on how you're structuring your ideas, it could be 3, definitely. Okay, guys. So right, Gadi says that this is the good one. What does everybody else think? Yeah, it has 4 paragraphs. Very good. Yeah, exactly. It's the good one. So it has 4 paragraphs. What other things can we notice about the structure, the organization? What do you guys notice in clarity of ideas? What can you tell me? Why do you think it's a good sample? Yeah, it sticks to the layout. That's an important thing. We don't have any opinions. What about the wording? Do you guys think it's less than 150 words? We are also complying with the number of words. We have really good content, very good, Jose Luis. We have good register. So remember what we mentioned: impersonal, neutral style. We don't have any we, I, us. Everything is just describing. Solid data, very good. We're sticking to the task. We're summarizing and describing. We have very specific numbers, very good. We have nice vocabulary as well. Declined, these figures had fallen. Highest on the chart, contributed at least 17%. All of that helps us. Very good, guys. Okay, so let's do a very quick recap of what we should or shouldn't do for the writing task, for the first writing task for IELTS. So you should not write more than 150 words. Is this true or is this false? What do you guys think? Write your answers in the chat, please. Answering, yeah, very good. This is false. Number 2, you should not add specific information such as numbers. Should we do this or should we not do this? Is this true or false? Yeah, very good. It's false. You should take more than 20 minutes can be taken to do the task. What do you guys think? Is this true or false? Technically, it is false. You can, but you mustn't, right? You must try to allot 20 minutes only and then move on to the second task.
If I can just say one quick thing, Karen.
Go ahead,
I think
Alice.
that the point that you mentioned was really important about how And you technically can, right? But it's not recommended because you do have to be aware of your time. In the IELTS exams, there will be some kind of timekeeping device, so you can reference that to help you be aware of your time, right? So do keep that in mind. There's no like IELTS police that will be there to take away the paper after 20 minutes. But as Karen said, strongly, strongly recommended not to take more than 20 minutes there.
Exactly. Yes. So actually time management is everything when you're doing examinations. So either take your own watch because you cannot take your cell phone, or be looking at the clock that is provided. So you know that you're not taking more than 20 minutes. And also related to a point that I previously mentioned, remember that you have 20 minutes, but for the writing itself, you should be taking like 15, so that you have at least 5 minutes to check that everything is in order. Your spelling, language, clarity of ideas, all of that you should have. And number 4, the last paragraph is the conclusion. Do we have a conclusion in the last paragraph? Is it what it's expected? Is this true or false? Very good. False. A conclusion would kind of mean that you're wrapping up with maybe an opinion. A conclusion you would usually have in an essay, but for a description, as we said, you usually want to focus on very specific details that you can find in the task. So this is false. Number 5, you must not give inferences in the task. What do you guys remember? Is this true or false? Exactly. Very good. You guys learned very well. So this is true. Please do not give inferences. Do not give your opinion. You're describing and summarizing. What about number 6? The first task carries the same weight as the second one. True or false? Okay, yeah, very, very good. It does not. The second task carries more weight than the first one. You always get a graph for the first task. Is this true or false? Yeah, very good. This is false. Remember that you can have a graph. You can also have a table. You can also have a diagram. You can also have a map. So all of these options are possible, but the aim of the task remains exactly the same. And it usually has a 4-paragraph structure. Is this true or false? Exactly. Very good. It's generally true, as Gerardo I think was pointing out. We could have maybe a paragraph structure, but I would suggest you to try to stick to the 4-paragraph so that you know and that you balance all the information well. I think somebody was mentioning about having less information in the first 2 paragraphs than in the fourth paragraph. It's perfectly fine. We usually use that kind of thing for an essay, but in this first writing task you can have maybe 1 or 2 lines for the introduction of the topic, and then have maybe also a smaller one for the overview, and you want your third and fourth paragraph to be a little bit larger because you're detailing the information. So that is the most important thing. And before we wrap up, I would like you guys to write in 1 line what is something that you learned from this webinar? What is something new that you learned about the IELTS Writing Task 1? Just 1 sentence, please. They're taking their time to think. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. They've learned a lot.
They
They've
learned a
learned a
lot.
lot, yeah. And I also want to invite people to write any questions. If you have more questions, people have been writing questions throughout. Take this time. Anna Karen is our IELTS expert, so pick her brain, get as much information as you can.
Hey, I love this one. We must not write an opinion. That is super important. Tattoo it to your brain, guys, when you're doing your IELTS. It's happened to me. I've read so many writing tasks where I tell them, "Do not write your opinion," and then there they are. Yeah, very good. And it's always good to analyze before you start writing. If you have a graph, a chart, or whatever, always analyze first. Yeah,
Cool.
very good. We should not use contractions. Avoid using contractions. Sometimes that can also be a little bit tricky to remember not using contractions if you usually use informal English, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect. And I guess we can move on if anybody has any questions that you would like to ask.